Morning, all. Hope you guys are doing well. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you, regardless of whatever you celebrate. Um, and yeah, I mean, we're gonna do a deadline stream here. I'm gonna be enjoying the next 2 hours. Hopefully, we get some Man City leaks. They're not really relevant to me. The green screen isn't great today, so yeah, take that with a pinch of salt. But hope you guys are well in general. FPL Jason, hope you're well. Welcome back to FPL. FPL Oz, my goat. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Tom Morning, Smos, or Smos, morning to you. Smello, whatever that means. Black Totter, Merry Christmas. Milan, Merry Christmas to you as well. Start Rogers or Evan Nilsson. Interesting. I think I would go Evan Nilsson, right? Home game is there. With Rogers specifically, you've got to think Newcastle and Crystal Palace both pretty good defenses. They started the season both pretty poorly, but I think for the most part, we've seen both Newcastle and Crystal Palace settle into some pretty good baselines in terms of defense. I think Crystal Palace, for example, is a team that will probably move up in the sort of expected goals conceded table, right? If we want to kind of put them in a certain position, given that their sort of run of games in the future is actually really good. So I'd probably just go with the home player here and Evan Nilsson and play him. I know Evan Nilsson plays less minutes of football, and that's quite significant, but I'd probably still go Evan Nilsson. Mad says Pedro or Solanke is Watkins' replacement. I don't love Solanke for now. I probably prefer Pedro for this week, but I have to say that Pedro doesn't have great games. Neither does Solanke. Like, he's got some up and down games. I'm personally looking at Solanke because I'm thinking, for example, that a week like this is a bit of a down game. Arsenal clearly in the future is going to be a down game, but I'd say have a look at your rotation for Solanke in game week 20 when you're probably going to be benching him versus Arsenal. So, or is it when does he play Arsenal? It's 20, right? Or have I lost my mind? I may have lost my mind. Or is it 22 that I'm... What's going on? Sorry, it's 21. Yeah, it's 21. I think 21 is a bit of a problem week because... No, why is it a problem week? No, it's Bruno that has a bad gaming 20 and João Pedro. So João Pedro has Arsenal 20. Solanke has Arsenal 21. A lot of people own kind of like Ahmad Bruno type, so you don't really want to be playing them, I guess, on 20. That's a pretty weak game week in general, so Solanke's quite nice for that. João Pedro sort of exacerbates the problem. Solanke outside of that game week is pretty good. So if you kind of have rotation for 21, I think Solanke's actually a pretty good pick. Sells or Henderson? I'd just go Henderson. I just think he's... At that sort of price point, I think I'd rather just go into Henderson for now. And honestly, the run of games for Crystal Palace is just better than Nottingham Forest's, even though, yes, of course, Forest have been such a good defense. And Sells is probably still a really, really good goalkeeper. Any news on Cunha? I think he's fine, guys. Honestly, I think we got our Christmas gift, and Cunha is gonna play. I mean, you're not gonna ban him over the course of the day, are you? So, yeah. I mean, I think we're fine. More than fine, actually. He plays at 5:30 today. You're not gonna ban him today, and that's it. I think Cunha is fine. Would you start Robinson or Milankovic? I'd start Milankovic. Did Odegaard instead of Bruno, since I own Ahmad and my mini league players have him, thinking now that Nelly would have been a better choice now. I mean, Nelly's only a better choice if you really needed an upgrade in a different sort of position, right? For a different sort of price point. I don't think there's any reason to really be selling like to not go into Odegaard, if that makes sense. We also know that Arsenal are probably dipping into the transfer market, so that could have some impacts on certain players. Specifically Martinelli over his position. I know it's more so the case that, you know, Trossard Martinelli on the left, but Martinelli can play those right wing minutes. But, you know, like previously to, let's say, Saka being injured, I mean, the landscape wasn't great for Martinelli, right? So yes, Martinelli's minutes in general have ticked up massively. And I think he's actually going to be a very, very good pick. But it's still always going to be probably better from an Odegaard point of view, because you're going to guarantee those minutes, the bonus points, the clean sheets, everything like that. Reckon the Liverpool mids are worth a punt if wildcarding next game week or play it safe. I would say just go Martinelli or Odegaard. Because unless you're gonna get a Liverpool leak, like really, like if you're 100% sure who's gonna start, I just don't see the value in being able to tap into like 65 minutes of a player. I totally appreciate that you want to have a Liverpool player first and foremost, if you can jump into this fixture, but no, I mean I really don't see the value of bypassing an Arsenal pick that probably has better guaranteed minutes. Like I would still go with Odegaard personally. Unless somehow we got a leak today that Jota's going to start, then yeah, maybe go Jota. But a couple of the questions. So Thor says, favorite fantasy YouTuber, thank you so much. Would you do Fleck and Allison for -4? I would not. I mean, Leicester at home could almost earn it back potentially. Yeah, let me kind of explain my sentiments on Allison because I think it's quite interesting. I think one way you need to think about it is, yes, I do believe Allison's probably going to give you 4 points over Flecken over a Horizon, including the double. But I think the issue with making that move is, does it lock you into free Liverpool players? Because if you think about it, we might want Pickford for the double. We might want Slot for double game week 25. Like if double game week 24 falls on 24, I can understand people want to use the triple captain on it. But if it falls on 25, there's actually a really nice, if you kind of look at how you would play the chip, I actually think Slot into Glasner / Pep is really good as well, as a potential chip strategy play. So that's quite interesting to me. As far as, let's say, the element of just going for Allison, I just feel like Allison's only really expected to probably outperform Flecken by around 3-4 points over this run. So it's like, if you're really that interested in going out of Flecken, that's fine. But I don't think it's really worth a hit. I totally get the sentiment though with Leicester. Like, I mean, I for example, I'm invested into Liverpool getting a clean sheet versus Leicester, right? Like that's why I've gone for Trent. So yeah. And Chewy, I agree. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see Darwin starting. Like I can see Darwin starting. I don't think that's crazy at all. I don't know what's wrong. Is it my lighting? To be honest, could be my lighting. Maybe it's just even the position that I'm. Seems better now. Monks, thank you so much for the super chat. Opinions on a Foden punt instead of Bruno. I think Foden's had great minutes recently. The only issue with Foden, despite the good fixtures, I would say is he might still be a future transfer to Bruno, so that always has a cost. The second piece is I'm not sure if Foden's going to play the next 2 fixtures guaranteed in terms of playing 90 minutes a game. So I think if you can get those guaranteed minutes from Bruno, yes, you're going to take a bad fixture, which is Liverpool away, but I think Bruno's just the better pick going forwards. Am I going to say that Foden's bad? No, Foden's not bad. Son is not bad either, but it's always a case of, could you actually be doing something with, I guess, the excess money, like the 0.7 difference? And could you also be doing something with just the idea that Foden could also be a future transfer out? Because I do think that these sort of new city baselines aren't great, and it's good upside in terms of the effective ownership. But to be honest, it's not like Bruno or Odegaard or Madison's. I don't like Madison, obviously, as you guys probably know, but none of these picks are really in a high EO position. So I guess the idea of going for Foden as a punt is always the idea of going for someone who's even less owned. Foden is still pretty low owned, and so is Bruno, and so is Odegaard. So if you still think objectively that Bruno and Odegaard are close to Foden, then I'd probably just go for those two, because you're always getting that money saving, and that could still help you with making moves elsewhere. But yeah, I don't mind Foden at all. Any info about Welbeck? No, I don't think it's really good. I think it's looking pretty bad right now. When is the best time to use chips? I mean, I think have a look at what Ben Crillin has said so far. I think the general suggestion of, let's say, a wild card around game week 30 is quite strong. Can keep in mind that there's a blank game week in 29. There's also going to be another blank game week a little bit after 30. So you might have to use the free hit on one of the blanks. The triple captain can be used on 24, 25, depending on when the double drops. That's where we expect the Liverpool-Everton double to be rescheduled. It depends on some fixture outcomes as well. You could also be using the assistant manager either, I think, at the end of the season at 36, around 31, or around 24, 25, depending when the double drops. What I would say is pay attention to how some of these cup fixtures unfold, have a general strategy in mind, and sort of be cognizant of, you know, for example, who's potentially going to blank game week in game week 29, and see if your plans change depending on whether the double drops on 24 or 25. Start Raul or Rodgers. I'd probably start Rodgers. I think Raul will start, but I think it's also a really poor game for him. So I'd still probably prefer Rodgers in that case. It's a close call though, so I can understand why you'd want to be on both minds. I think the Welbeck news is just generally poor. Hit subscribe. Really appreciate the super chat. Please do. If anyone's not subscribed, that'd be really nice. Nunez, Gakpo, Graven, Sobo, all on 4 yellow cards. Does Diaz start? Okay, I get your point. So you're saying you think that Diaz starts because they just want to protect people on yellow cards. I mean, I don't really see the point though, right? Because maybe for Gakpo that could be true. I just don't think that you're going to bench Graven or Sobo. You're just going to... You want to just get as many points on the board as possible, right? So I just don't see how all 4 of those players are suddenly going to be on the bench because of the yellow card suspension threat. Like, is it that important to actually have a full strength team versus West Ham? I don't think West Ham are particularly great. So, yeah, that's sort of my concern. I think Slot is not someone who's going to... Like, I think Slot is the type of manager where he will let you play, assuming that you're not going to do something stupid. And if you do something stupid, you've done something stupid, but that's not his assumption, right? If you think back to multiple weeks ago when he was talking about a very similar incident where he was talking about how... I can't remember what it was specifically, but I remember a presser where he was just talking about expectations. Like, he's just going to give you the benefit of the doubt, I would say. You know, if you do something wrong, then he'll just adjust. As far as the Salah posted thing, I don't even know, to be honest. Thank you, Arthur, so much. When am I planning on free hitting? It really depends on the slate. As far as bench boost, I think, you know, we're probably going to angle it for game week 36, but at the same time, the assistant managership is so strong. What I might do instead is, you know, around about the time when I actually plan to make my transfer for, let's say, Flecken to Alisson or something like that, right? If I can somehow cuff up the cash, to maybe instead of going for Flecken to let's say Alisson, if I do Valdemarson to let's say Alisson or Pickford, that already gives me like, let's say, a 15 man team. If you look at my team right now, I mean, to be quite honest, I think I probably have a better team than most people in terms of 15 players that are all good outside of my goalkeeper right now, right? Or goalkeepers, because you can say they're both bad, which is maybe true, given the Brentford injuries. So yeah, I mean, like when I look at my team, it's if I get Valdemarson to a competent goalkeeper, and suddenly there's a decent game week, naturally speaking, where the bench boost could make sense, I'll probably actually use it there. If I'm struggling to think, oh, like when I could use the bench boost if I want to AM 36, for example. So it really just depends on how I think that the season is unfolding. For example, the way we want to play the assistant managership can change radically just based on table position. So tough one. FPL Chai, hope you're doing well. I think you're live streaming as well. So Merry Christmas to you as well. Hope you're well. It's been a minute for sure. Thoughts on Mateta? I mean, I do like Mateta as a pick, but I'd still say that the comment that Glasner made on his fitness is a bit of a concern. His XG per 90 is a bit of a concern. I mean, but he's a strong pick, right? And I do think he's 100% on pens. Leak Crew says, hope you had a good Christmas. Would you, in your humble opinion, start Lewis Hall or Levi Colwill? I'd probably start Colwill personally. I think Fulham are weaker offense than Newcastle. And weaker offense than Aston Villa, and I'll probably take it from there. Almada Semenyo, I'd play Semenyo this game week. It's pretty close though. I think they're both really good picks. I'd personally just go Semenyo. I know we like to target Wolves, but it's still an away fixture. And actually, Wolves have been a pretty good defense this season if you look at the underlying stats. It's only the case that their sort of goals conceded is much higher than their expected goals conceded, which I think is a bit of variance in my opinion. Same thing with their offense. It's a little bit overrated because of how low the expected goals is compared to how many goals they've actually scored, which is actually a lot. You'll keep one of Cunha and Pedro for the next two. Who should I keep? I think Cunha can score versus United and Spurs easily. If you really want to keep, I mean, if it's just for the next two, I guess I'd keep Cunha. But Pedro just has a better fixture this game week, right? By quite a bit. So I think it's actually a pretty close call. As I said though, I'd probably just go for keeping Pedro. Does Cunha definitely play? I can't see how he wouldn't play. I mean, if you think about it, you can't give a club probably like what 7-8 hours of notice before they're gonna play a match to let them know that their most important player is gonna be suspended. So yeah. Why Odegaard? Ipswich at home, pen share, corners, bonus, all going to be affected by those positive things. So I think it's a nice time to jump on Odegaard, simply. Start Brennan or Rodgers. I'd probably go for, I mean, it's Brennan versus Nottingham Forest away. Maybe I'd actually go for Rodgers because you can't really guarantee the minutes for Johnson being great. Why Trent captain? Are you going Trent captain? Is that the play, Chai? Bench one, please. JP, Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, Ahmad. I think I'd bench Evan Nilsson. I also went for Odegaard. Yeah, sounds good. Salah posted, we're cooked. I mean, I don't really care about it personally. Look, it's not something that I care about, but I understand it's more contentious for other people, but that's not for me to decide or like arbitrate on. Zubin says, hello, Semenyo or Strand Larson? I'd go Semenyo quite easily within a heartbeat. Fran, start Micklenko or Hall? I think I'd start Hall. Start Jacob Murphy or Hall? I'd probably start Hall once again. And that's just because Jacob Murphy has always been an early sub. So yeah, of course he's been playing really well recently, but you also kind of have to factor in that he's playing versus a much better team versus Aston Villa. Is Enzo to Sarr the luxury? It is an absolute luxury because Bournemouth away is not a good fixture for Sarr. So I don't really see the point of actually going for Sarr now. Are Lewis expected minutes still secure? They're secure until people come back, right? And I've decided to keep Lewis, for example, over Dunk because of the Stones injuries. And even Ake, who, of course, he was on the bench, but yeah. You're not actually going for fair play. Rob T's gone for Sarr, already feeling the Odegaard FOMO. I mean, if you go for Sarr, I kind of understand the logic. You're sort of allowing yourself to be able to spend more money in different positions going forwards, and that's okay. Start Rodgers or Strand Larson? I'd start Rodgers, I'd say. It's a pretty close call, though. Do you know anything about Jesus and his minutes? I'd estimate Jesus' minutes to be around 75 minutes per game, something like that. Like, because you kind of need to factor in, if he doesn't play very well, he can be subbed off. You can have Havertz push into that center forward position, all these kinds of things. Or, of course, he can move into right wing. But it really just depends on, like, game to game, I think, going forwards is really going to depend on, first of all, whether they actually play all four of the attackers in terms of Havertz, Havertz, Jesus, Trossard, and Martinelli. Or if there's going to be situations where, you have Havertz potentially on the bench, or you have someone else on the bench, because Havertz is playing center forward. And so, yeah, I think you kind of need to factor in that. So I'd give a rough estimate of Jesus' minutes to be 75, but you also need to factor in that Jesus has 4 yellow cards. Henry says, should I keep Solanke or go to Isak, one free transfer? I would go Isak, right? You're going to be priced out. And I think Isak long-term is the better pick. So I would just go. FPL Top Bin says, play Colwell or Hall. I mean, it's been asked already, but I think it's a close question, right? I would personally just play Colwell, just because the fixture seems a little bit better for Chelsea, given that they're against Fulham. Any chance Salah could be benched? I just don't see how Salah could be benched, personally. I just don't. I'm not even going to entertain it. If I'm wrong, but I just don't see it. Start Rodgers or Sarr. I'd start Rodgers personally. I think people are vastly over. Like, how have we seen Bournemouth play this well over the course of the entire season, and people are still thinking that Bournemouth is a good fixture at all? Like, Bournemouth are probably one of the best teams in the league. Like, I'm talking top 3, top 4 in terms of overall performance. It could be a hot take, but I generally believe that. They're 5th in the table, but I actually think that they've played well enough this season to be 3rd. And arguably are better than Chelsea. That's really impressive, by the way, because they've had a lot of injuries. So that Bournemouth starting 11 is not very good. Or rather, the bench right now is not very good. But yeah, I think Bournemouth is an extremely tough place to go. Do you think Rob Sanchez starts? Yeah, I think he should. The way I see it is if the last time we saw Enzo rotate was versus an extremely easy fixture like Southampton, then I think he's going to do it again versus Ipswich. I don't see the rotation coming in versus Fulham, because I think you have to give respect to Fulham, and be appropriate about that. Dream Brother 22, Merry Christmas, Fran 5.5 KOR. Trent plus Sobo plus Jesus in. Fair enough. Sobo's an interesting pick because I don't love him, to be honest. I know he was great versus Tottenham, but we'll see. I do like Jesus in, and I do like Trent in, and obviously your position's extremely luxurious. And I don't think Sobo is an awful pick, right? Because as long as the minutes are somewhat decent, if you don't have Harvey Elliott, I guess, taking too many minutes away from him over this run, then it's not too bad. Kim says, greetings from Spain, watching the deadline stream from our camperman. That's awesome. Nice to see you in Spain, Kim. Just gives me reminders of the Euro vibes when we were talking so much about Belgium, and now you're in Spain. But yeah, hope you're well. Semenya Ahmad, Chris says, I personally think it's an extremely tough call. Like, I think it's dice roll territory. I'd personally go Semenya. Robert TG6 says, hi, Fran, would you play Ismaila Sarr or Enzo over Solanke this game week? No, I would play Solanke on both. Am I on vacation? Yeah, I am on vacation. But I'm still recording from home today, and I'll be going to Edinburgh with family from my wife's side on Friday, and we'll be creating content from there. So yeah, triple captain Salah. I think that it's a really good single game week, but personally, I think there's enough game weeks left in terms of doubles and stuff like that, particularly a double with Salah where I would just play the triple captaincy on Salah in 24. I think that's so clearly the better move, but I might be wrong. Like, the single fixture of Leicester at home is clearly better than Wolves at home. So I think maybe take that into account and sort of, choose what you think. But Salah could maybe have slightly less minutes versus Leicester, of course. Would you start Lewis or Milenkovic? I would just go Lewis. -4 Tobias, what have you done? Giovanni says he's got 1 free transfer. Should I go for Isak? Got Cunha, Pedro, Evan Nilsson. I would just go Isak personally. Yeah, I think going from Evan Nilsson makes sense. But keep in mind, of course, if you have Cunha and he gets suspended, that's another free transfer for someone else. So I think take those two things into account. Team Odegaard for the win. Hope so. Going to be a little bit tougher watching Bruno, I guess, today, and Foden even, or Son, for example. Would you start Rodgers or Enzo? I think it's a pretty close call. I'd probably still start Rodgers because I just prefer him, and I think that Lavia injury is quite significant in terms of like what position Enzo is sort of occupying on the pitch. Gabriel Jesus, I think, is a great pick. Lewis or Colwell, I'd probably go Lewis still. The Trent FOMO was real this week, buckled in the end, and love it. Yeah, he's a pretty good player. So is Trent worth the -4? I mean, it depends who you're selling. Like, if you had Guardiola like me, I probably wouldn't recommend it. Colwell or Rodgers, I'd probably still start Rodgers. I'm going to put you in timeout, though. Please don't spam the chat. Start only 2 Mbeumo, Ahmad, or Sarr. I think Mbeumo plus Ahmad makes sense. Is Robertson a good option? I would just go Gabriel. I just think that Robertson, I mean, Tsimikas is just going to take minutes away from him. Like, he's probably prone to a benching. But that's because Tsimikas is a really good available replacement to Robertson compared to how Trent doesn't really have one in Kwanzaa. Got Luis Diaz for Saka. Should I rotate him out next few instead of improving mids like Mitoma/Semenyo? I don't think Semenyo needs improvement. I don't really like Luis Diaz, to be honest, as a pick, if I'm honest. I mean, it's hard to sort of guess rotation, so you're just going to have to see what the minutes are like. I mean, you've gone for Luis Diaz, so you're going to play him this week, but you'll need to kind of assess his minutes going forwards and see like how you would expect Slot to keep playing. I think Luis Diaz is clearly within their first choice starting 11, but you're probably not going to rotate him. You're just going to start him. Is Trent worth a -4? You got Ait Nuri. Yeah, I think it's worth a -4. Guardiola Rodgers, I'd play Guardiola within a heartbeat. How long is Saka out? We don't really know the full timeline, but I think 8 weeks was the estimate that we got, and that's an extremely long amount of time, so keep that, in mind. What's with all the Sarr hype? I think Sarr is a really good pick, but I just don't see why people are going for Sarr this week. However, I also recognize that everyone's making moves because Saka's out, so you want to sort of not lose the funds on Saka, and you just want to start making moves. Plus, maybe that gives you an Isak, it gives you a Trent. I do think Sarr is just a really good pick in general, but once again, as I said, it's just not something that I think is a good pick this game week. And I could be wrong, but I'd just much rather have him Southampton plus. But I think Sarr is a very serious pick, and definitely a green pick for me from a sort of cheat sheet perspective. Bench Rodgers or João Pedro? I think I'd bench Rodgers. Thoughts on Saka and Raul to Isak, and who would you recommend for a midfielder for -4? I'd probably just go Odegaard or Martinelli. Is captaining Haaland worth the risk when you have Haaland as well, when you have Salah as well? I mean, I wouldn't captain Haaland this week. I don't think it makes any sense, but I think I'd captain Haaland the next 2 weeks versus Salah. That's totally fine. This is so obviously a Salah captain week, and I don't think there's even much discussion around it. Is captain Hall, Colwell, Solanke start 2? Probably Colwell, Solanke. Raya or Becker in a wildcard? I'd go Becker. Start Ahmad, João Pedro, Cunha. I'd probably bench Cunha or Ahmad. I'd play João Pedro versus Brentford at home easily. FPL Dar says who to bench? Ahmad, João Pedro, Jackson. Probably Ahmad. Bench 1, Cunha, Rodgers, Semenyo. I'd bench Rodgers in that case. Do you like Jota as a pick? I don't, to be honest. I think he's still sort of, gaining fitness. Can't be trusted in terms of injuries. And honestly, there's too much competition right now, I think, for him to be like a standout good pick. Razvan says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you as well. Would you start Raul Jimenez or Matoma this game week? I'd say Matoma for sure. Saw a rumor that Arsenal are inquiring into Mbeumo availability. I mean, it makes sense because he's a good player, but I can't imagine that Brentford would sell him before. Like, selling Mbeumo in the winter would be kind of crazy for me. Your opinion on Saliba, Fran? With the uncertainty of Gabriel on previous weeks, I took him. So you took him in 8th place. What? 8th in place? So you took him, I guess, over Gabriel. Will it fire back? You played. There's nothing wrong with Saliba. Like, on average, I'd expect Gabriel to do better than Saliba, but there's nothing wrong with owning Saliba. Triple captain Salah? I'd still wait for double gaming 24-25. Would you start Raul or Rodgers? No, I'd actually play Rodgers personally. I think it's a close call, though. Like, there's a risk element to playing Raul this week, but it's still Chelsea away, which I think is a pretty tough match, considering that Fulham are slightly worse offense than Aston Villa. And I still think that even though, yes, Muniz had a terrible performance for Southampton, I'm not sure if Raul is going to be playing like the full 90, if that makes sense. Colwell or Housen? I'd play Colwell. It's a close call. It comes down to, I would say, Crystal Palace are a pretty competent defense, so I think it's probably going to be a little bit nicer, I guess, than I mean, yeah, I think technically playing Crystal Palace from an offensive point of view is probably tougher than United, if I can give credits to that. Pretty close though, I'd say, in terms of Howson this week. But yeah, I think I'll just play Colwell. Thanks for unswerving my question. No problem. I think like Brentford is such a good fixture. Like Brentford are terrible defense, terrible. I would target them. I mean, I'm looking at my goalkeeper here, and like when I think about my team this week, it's basically 10 players plus maybe 1 point. You know, next week it could be 0 points because he's literally playing Arsenal. So yeah. Is bench boost with Sells, Rogers, Howson, Lewis sensible? Okay, so I'd say Sells probably expectation like 3.5 points. Rogers like 3.6. Howson probably 3 point something. Lewis probably 4. So you're saying like, I don't know, like 10.5 plus Lewis. Nah, I don't think it's good enough. I just don't think it's good enough. You could end up with, let's say, a clean sheet from Lewis, which is nice, but it's not a great Rogers game week. It's a pretty mediocre Sells game week because you have to think Tottenham will score. So yeah, I just don't really see the value. Can Cunha get suspended between now and game time? No, I think that would be ridiculous. I honestly think that would be ridiculous. Like maybe someone will disagree with me, but I think Cunha getting banned like between now and the deadline is absurd. What do you think about Declan Rice for Saka? I don't love it. I'd rather just go Martinelli or Odegaard. Like I just don't see what's the point of saving so much money to get an Arsenal player who's mostly giving you value from corners and a little bit of open play for when you can actually get someone who's either more active in open play or has the same, I guess, positives as Declan Rice, but probably still is a little bit more active in open play in Odegaard and also is probably on penalties. So I probably just wouldn't cheap out, or I would just go somewhere else. Did Flecken to Allison for a hit? Because Flecken, as you said, I mean, Flecken is, I mean, he's not +2 most weeks, right? He can also get 3 points sometimes. Who knows? Like, we've seen goalkeepers in bad fixtures get a haul. I think the issue, though, is that when you compare Flecken to Allison, it's not like Allison is just going to be 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 every week. So it's not something like that. But yeah, I mean, fair enough. If you want to go Flecken to Allison now, I think it makes sense. I'm personally saving up a little, like, if you look at my team, I'm going to save up my money so that I can go Solanke next week. And then, yeah, fine. Like, I don't have money for Flecken, but I have money for Pickford later down the line. So I think I'll be fine. Like, I'm going to go Pickford, and probably one of my defenders will eventually become Konate or something like that, if he's alive. Start Lewis or Colwell? I'd start Lewis personally. Who knows? We might actually get some leaks today, though, right? I think Tony suggested that he might have some leaks today. So, of course, he's got his own Patreon. I'd say have a look at that. So yeah, today could be a Tony Patreon day, hopefully with Lewis, and maybe that can make it a little bit more comfortable for me. Sorry. Hey Fran, play Aina or Mazraoui? I'd play Mazraoui, I think. Yeah. I mean, Wolves, as I always say, like Wolves Cunha banned. Are you being serious? I don't need a jump scare. Has it happened? You're just trolling, right? Okay. Um. Just gonna have to what do I do? Guess we'll just have to hide the user. Hi Fran, is JP to Jesus worth the -4? I don't think it's worth the -4, no. Play Cunha or Semenyo? I'd play Semenyo. Fran, should I play Castagna or bring Munoz for a hit? I don't think Munoz for a hit makes any sense. Like, this is a bad fixture for Crystal Palace. Why would you want Munoz? Start Housen or Colwell? Colwell. Bench only one, Mbeumo, Ahmad, or Sar. I'd bench Sar. Start Semenyo or Mbeumo. Have Verbruggen in net. Start Semenyo or Mbeumo. I mean, that's a really close call. I mean, but given that you actually have the Brighton goalkeeper, though, like I would just play Semenyo, right? You just hope for the maximum outcome variance for your own team, and you just go with Semenyo, because I think it's a close call. Like, Semenyo just has a good fixture at home. So, and FPL Discomfort or Kieran, thank you so much for gifting 1 FPL membership. Lloyd Smith, feel free to thank Kieran as well for giving the membership, and hope you're doing well. Merry Christmas. Hope the house move was all good. So, yeah. Thanks again. Larson or Rogers? I'd play Rogers. All right, Lee Batty boy. Funny on Boxing Day, I guess. See you around. Should I get Odegaard / Bruno for a hit, or just play Ina, who's on my bench? I don't really mind taking a hit for Odegaard or Bruno personally. I think they both got good games where you'd say you take some of the immediate sort of short-term EV shortfall in terms of expected points, and then hope that Odegaard / Bruno recuperate over the run. I think it makes sense to take a hit for those two players. Try not to use caps. By the way, Galton, I'm not going to respond to caps lock messages. Will we get any leaks from Man City? I think potentially by way of Tony, hopefully. Weirdo trolls, why is no one talking about Murphy? Because he plays 65 minutes a match and has unsustainable levels of production. If you just look at his underlying stats, like, him playing 65 minutes a game is not a good player in this game. That's my opinion, and I'll stand by it. Start Enzo, Raul, or Hall. I'd play. I think I'd start Enzo. I think I'd start Enzo. Because I'm trying to think, okay, when you play Enzo versus Raul, like, technically you're sort of pitting one player against another, not directly, right? Because obviously Raul is playing versus a Chelsea defense, but just in terms of outcomes. So yeah, I think it's I'd probably have played the attackers over Hall in this case, and I probably would just play Enzo, just backing a Chelsea result. Is triple Arsenal valid? Of course it is. They're literally against Ipswich at home. What do you think about Pedro to Jesus? I don't really like the move personally, because I think this is such a good Pedro game. I think Jesus has a suspension threat, and moving off of João Pedro, I think, is unnecessary unless he's injured, right? So what's the point of moving off of João Pedro when you can probably actually better spend some money in other positions, like, or at least within another forward spot within the team? I think holding João Pedro is like holding, a Rogers or a Semenyo or something like that. Like, these are really good players that we want to keep in our teams. Trying to spend free transfers around them is probably not the best way to sort of eke out value each week, even though I recognize that Jesus just has a better game than João Pedro, but João Pedro still has a really good game and overall is a good piece to most teams. What about Luis Diaz? I still think his minutes are going to be a bit suspect over this run. And that's simply because of the amount of depth that they have at their disposal right now. Plus, also, he played a lot of minutes versus Tottenham, so... okay, I'm just gonna have to just... Why are there so many trolls today? Whatever. Goodbye. Colwell or Lewis? Sorry, I'm just gonna refresh my page. Do you think Foden will start? I think Foden should start, but I don't think. Yeah. Also, like, please stop spamming in chat. Please, guys, stop spamming in chat. Like, I'm not. I'm just not gonna respond to messages if you're gonna spam. And that's just gonna make it less fun for everyone else as well. Gautam says, would you recommend Son over Odegaard and Bruno? I wouldn't recommend him over Odegaard or Bruno. So I just don't see. Like, I just don't see what's the point of spending a little bit more money for Son, given his sort of reduced amount of minutes this season. I think it is the point. Is Trent essential? I don't think so. But obviously, if you want to go for Trent, these are one of the weeks where it just feels super easy as an entry point, right? I would never say that someone's essential, apart from maybe Mo Salah right now. With this sort of level of production, I actually think that Trent and Palmer and Salah are actually essential. I don't think anyone else is. Yeah, I think just having a think about it, think about the entire game. No goalkeeper is essential. No defender is essential. Even Gabriel, I don't think is essential. Because I think you can definitely justify selling Arsenal players in Gaming 20. No midfielders are essential outside of the two that I outlined. Like, I think if I created any team now, my core would always be Salah Palmer. I don't think anything would change. Yeah. Maybe Isak is close, but I don't think he is. When does Haaland hurt us? I mean, he just can't hurt us, right? The effective ownership is too low. And first of all, like, Salah's a better captain this week. Haaland is a better captain the next 2 weeks, which sure, he can hurt us, but he's not going to hurt us bad, because anytime you go for Haaland, you're spending money elsewhere. And ultimately, Haaland is just going to be a worse pick, I think, going forwards compared to Palmer, Salah outright. And because of that, the issue is, by going for Haaland, you're probably not going to have a Palmer Salah draft. Or if you do, you're going for a lot of budget players at the expense of, I guess, the overall ceiling of your team being well-rounded, etc. So, yeah, I don't think Haaland's going to hurt us. And I'm not really worried about Haaland. Unless suddenly, like, City start playing like a world-class team again. And they just simply haven't. And until they do, I don't even think that, yeah, okay, sure, they could get 9 points from 9 from Everton, West Ham, Leicester. Or Leicester West Ham, but I don't think necessarily that I'm going to really care about it, because yeah, going back to the point, I think if you go for, let's say, a Haaland Salah team, which most people will be minded to do, the issue is that they're probably going to lose out on the 2 Palmer captaincies coming out of that, right? Which is going to be like Palmer versus Ipswich, or rather Palmer versus Palace, and even Bournemouth, for example. So and sorry, not even that, but I mean Palmer versus Wolves at home, and Bournemouth at home specifically. So those are the ones where I'd say, yeah, like, they're losing out a little bit too much there, and it's not great. Why are people trolling so fake FPL Harry's here? I'm just gonna have to hide that user as well. I don't even know what is going on. Why is there this many amount of trolls today? Start Dallo or Colwell? I'd probably actually start Colwell still. But if you want to go Dallo, I think it's fine. I mean, Wolves are a pretty blunt knife, if you want to put it like that. By Robertson or Guardiola, I think Guardiola has much better minutes, so I'd go Guardiola. Happy Christmas to you as well, Adam. What should I do with Evan Nilsson? One more week for... I would just go... If you can go Jesus now, I would just go Jesus. City are getting relegated. They're not, but yeah. Santa Claus is taking note for 2025. What did I say? Claus. Are you planning to go for Sar in the future? And are you still sticking to Pedro? Yeah, I'll stick to Pedro. Sar... I mean, it depends. I'm going to miss out on Sar versus Southampton at home, which is not good. But I think I'll go for either Sar on 21 or Bruno on 21. So we'll see what happens. Subscribe to FPL Golden Goal sent me. Oh, that's really nice. The Knights template. Please send him my absolute best. He's a really lovely guy. So yeah, thank you so much. Trolls have too much time. I mean, like it's Boxing Day. Why are you trolling? I don't know. Maybe spend some time with your family instead, or enjoy an FPL deadline stream without trolling. Start Ahmad Semenyo. Generally, a lot of people asking that call. I think that's a 50-50. I would go with the home player always. So I would go Semenyo, but it's close. Semenyo to Sar in a few weeks. I actually think Semenyo is still the best budget mid in the game, personally. The way I see it, Semenyo's production is very real. His minutes are very real. And the thing that makes Semenyo even more interesting is that he just simply doesn't have that blank gimme 29 issue. So he's probably one of the best picks to go for, generally speaking. I would say Semenyo is one of the best picks in the game still. And yeah, really comfortable that he's a top pick. If you own Semenyo, I think the tricky period is going to be like that period around 21 to 24. Like, he's not super rotatable, but he still has a good fixture on 23. You know, so like, sure, you could want to sell him then, but I think the point of Semenyo always is that he's a bit of a rotation pick, right? So you're trying to optimize around the idea that you can rotate around that period. So if you own Semenyo, yes, it makes sense to have another budget mid probably to rotate around him, but I don't think necessarily that it's about Semenyo being bad, right? Like, Semenyo and Ahmad are the ones that rotate with each other. But it doesn't mean that I think Ahmad, for example, is like better than Semenyo and worth a 3 transfer in that direction, because equally what Ahmad will give you is good fixtures like now, but Semenyo, he'll also have his own bad fixtures. Like, what are you going to do, for example, with like Liverpool away, for example, if you just owned one of the two players? You'll just have to play them. So yeah, I think Semenyo's one of the best picks still. Tyson, yeah, I'm sorry, just gonna put you in timeout because no spamming the chat. Same with you, Bagus. Just send in one message at a time, and I'll respond to them. Wood or Pedro for Isak? I would go out of Wood still. Rogers to Sar in a few weeks. I still don't think it's a great move. I'm actually, I did miss a super chat. I really apologize to E7. And thank you to obviously all the previous super chats too. But E7, on your wild card, Wood, Sar, Fabianski versus João Pedro, Martinelli, Valdemarsson. I'd probably go for Wood, Sar, Fabianski. I mean, I've spoken to this with you, but I personally don't love Wood over João Pedro. Like, I just don't see why it's one or the other. But yeah. And I think if you go JP over Wood, what that gives you as well is Lewis Hall, potentially, who you can play this week if you still have that sort of dilemma in your mind. But yeah, even if I was to actually like iterate on those 3 picks, I'd probably want to have Fabian's. I mean, Martinelli is actually really good. I'd probably actually go the JP Martinelli route, actually, yeah. Even though I like Fabianski over Valdemarsson, I think it's quite clear to actually go JP Mart. So that's probably what I would go with. Mpass87, thank you so much for being a member for 10 months. Happy holidays to you as well. Bench Saka and went Evan Nilsson out for Jesus. Are you cooked? Not really, but I think this is such a good game week where you can go for... Yeah, I'm just going to put a message. We can put it at the header. Just stop spamming in chat. It's that simple. But sorry, finishing a message with Mpass87. I still think that there's a lot of value to just simply going for a really strong midfielder for now. But if you're going for Jesus, then fine. But I think the issue is, if you still have free transfers and you only have 1 free transfer, then you're never going to be able to recoup that Saka value immediately. I just think I would personally just go with, like, let's say Jesus plus Odegaard or Jesus plus Bruno, even if it's for a hit. Hall of Shame 20. Fair enough. Enzo or Rogers, I'd still probably play Rogers. I think Enzo playing deeper with Lavia being injured is still very significant to Enzo and his output. Start Rogers or 1 week punt up to 11 million. I mean, if it's for 1 free transfer, first of all, Merry Christmas to you, Harry. I'd probably just go for someone like an Odegaard. Because I mean, I am expecting you've got Salah and Palmer, so I'm not even going to mention them. Yeah, I'd probably just go with Odegaard, to be honest, because we're not going to get a guarantee on who's going to start for Liverpool. Like, whilst it might be interesting to go for, like, let's say Jota, for example, like Martinelli's probably the only pick that I can say realistically from Liverpool and Arsenal who is let's say below 8 million and actually has like some value, but you know, you have an unlimited budget. I would just go Odegaard anyways. Is there any Man City team leaks? Just because you're being rude, I guess you can just leave. Team Odegaard, Team Fran. Yeah, I still think Bruno's a very, very good pick, to be honest. So, Wood to Jackson next week rather than a hit makes sense. For me, makes sense. I don't think so, right? Because Jackson could get benched versus Ipswich. Like, what makes you think that Jackson's going to start versus Ipswich? Is, I think, like, my genuine question is that how am I planning to fit Munoz in my team? He's not coming into my team. I don't need Munoz in my team at all. Play Rogers or Mitoma. I'd play Mitoma easily. Hey, I'm starting Rogers for Mbeumo. What do you think? Worth it? I mean, if you want to do that, I think that's fine. I think both of them pretty much have a pretty weak, like, away type fixture. So, I prefer Mbeumo personally, but if you want to go Rogers, I think that's fine. Kim, gonna move on for now. Maybe see you at the end of the stream. Feliz Navidad and go Odegaard. Good luck, Kim. Bench boost, Flecken, Iverson, Hall, Gabriel, Cole, Trent. I mean, what is your bench boost though? I don't understand. Can you just tell me the bench? Midnight Awareness, Strand Larson, Rogers. I'd play Rogers. Dunker, Hall. I'd probably play Hall. Why'd I go Odegaard over Bruno? Just better fixtures in the next three. What are the three best forwards to own? I would say Isak. I'd still say João Pedro from a perspective of this game week onwards, including this game week, and I'd say Solanke. But I really don't mind if, like, that third spot, I don't really care about. I think if you want to, like, just go Wood, that's fine. If you want to go Solanke, that's fine. If you want to go Jesus for a bit of upside, I think maybe, like, if we were looking at this week, I would say Isak, Jesus, João Pedro is, like, a really nice frontline core to own. Because I guess the worst case with João Pedro or Jesus, for example, is always going to be you can move out of Jesus into, let's say, like a Wood in the future, or you can still move into, I don't know, like an Evan Nilsson, or, you know, worst case, like, hopefully a budget option arises and Armstrong can be like an interesting pick for us. So yeah, a couple of points to mention there. Who is best Saka replacement? I mean, I'm not going to say who's the best, but I do think Odegaard and Bruno are your best options. George Collier says, hey boss, happy holidays. Thoughts on Strand Larson to Gabriel Jesus? I think that's a great move, George. Just keep in mind that Jesus has 4 yellow cards if you care about that, because that could be significant to how you make your moves. IBK, hope you're doing well. Hi, Fran, hope you had a good Christmas. Is it worth bringing in Wood or Jesus in for JP for a hit? I don't think it's worth a hit at all. I definitely wouldn't do it over Wood. I think JP just has a better fixture. But when it comes to, let's say, the idea of Jesus, I think my only concern is that 4 yellow card aspect, right? Like taking someone for a hit, and then I don't know, like if Jesus kind of bottles it per se and gets a yellow card or doesn't play very well, and suddenly you've got Havertz starting in a tougher game, then I'm not sure if it's really valuable. I probably wouldn't move out of João Pedro for a hit, but it would really be like JP or Jesus for me, and not Wood rather. Because you've got to think about it too. Like Wood doesn't have a good fixture next week. He's going to be versus Everton away, which is like a really tough match, and then he's also got Liverpool in the distance. So, what about Sobo instead of Odegaard's 1 week punt? I mean, Sobo. I don't like Sobo more than Odegaard. Even if they're both going to play 90 minutes, I'd expect Sobo to be worse. Still. Cunha or Sar, like that's a base expectation, by the way. Like obviously Sobo's clearly capable of doing better than Odegaard in open play, like he's already done more. But Jota's minutes pre-injury were great, 7 starts and 8. Yeah, but the reason is that Darwin was also injured over that run. We didn't see Luis Diaz playing centre forward at the time. And yeah, I think that's quite significant if you think about it like that. Not to mention that Jota isn't fit. So like, why are we suddenly expecting that a non-fit Jota over this period where you have a lot of fixtures back and forth is suddenly going to be playing the same minutes that he did when he was actually fully fit to start the season and had a preseason? Why hasn't Cunha been suspended? I mean, I guess the FA just want to celebrate their Christmas. SNK Vinny says, hi Fran, thanks for taking up the time to stream during Christmas. Happy holidays to you as well. You'll be waiting in the stream for the leaked lineup that you'll surely be waiting for too. Yeah, I mean, if Tony provides us the goods, then I'll be there. Cunha or João Pedro? I mean, I'd play João Pedro easily. Bench 1, Enzo Semenyo or Sar. I'd bench Sar. The Missile Duo says bench 2, Mikolenko, Harwood, Bellis, and Aina. I mean, I'd bench probably Harwood, Bellis, and I'd bench Mikolenko, I think. Yeah, I'd still bench Mikolenko. Is keeping Havertz after this game week good? I mean, if you're going to keep him for this one too, I mean, yeah, it's fine. I think we need to kind of see what happens, right? If I think Havertz is going to start this match, but I think it's possible that he could get benched for the next game. But we just kind of need to monitor the minutes and just monitor the performances, really, versus Ipswich even. Because I think right now, when you have such an important player like Saka out of the team, and all the other attackers are probably insignificant compared to Saka's level of importance, like their importance in the team and their minutes can be quite flaky, and they can change quite situationally based on form. So, for example, Jesus has played so well in the last 2 games, I can't see Jesus getting benched, right? The same way, for example, if let's say Havertz doesn't do anything now, I think that could be a huge impact for him. If we don't get any leaks, do I still go Porro to Guardiola? I think Guardiola's, like, I don't think you need a leak to even know that Guardiola's going to be a good transfer. I think Guardiola's fine. Like, Guardiola, either Guardiola plays left back today or left center back, and you'll be fine. Yeah. No clean sheet today. It's Boxing Day after all. Next week, you want out of Wood, but all you see is Jackson. I think next week you can go for Solanke as well. Thank you so much, IBK. Really appreciate the super chat. I hope you're doing well. Hope to join you in a space at sometime soon. Play Ahmad or Rogers. You've got Bruno. I'd still play Ahmad. I don't think there's anything wrong with doubling up. Trent captain. I mean, if you really don't want to go Salah captain, you can go Trent captain, but I'm not considering it whatsoever. I'd probably go captain Salah very easily. He's just too good. Honestly, just too good. The baselines, like this is actually Salah's most productive season based on underlying stats, which is crazy, right? At 32 and a half. Start Ahmad or Cunha. I'd probably go Ahmad personally. Martinelli and Jesus double up for free. I think that's perfectly fine. I think, yeah, okay, they've got less minutes than Odegaard, but I still think those are really good picks. Like if I probably had another free transfer, I would probably have gone Cunha to Jesus. No question. Just want to wish you a successful week. Same to you, Milan. Hope you're doing well. Bench boost Iverson, Enzo, Caldwell, Lewis. I don't think that's a good enough bench boost. Havertz start. I think he should start just because I think that Havertz could play, but he could be playing center mid, right? Which is important. Danny, thank you so much for the comment. Thoughts on replacing Saka for Maddison and Enzo for Diaz? I think Maddison's minutes still are really poor. I'm not really sure Maddison. Like I have a hard time explaining Maddison's season because like there's always going to be 1 or 2 players who just have an extremely good purple patch in terms of finishing, and this might be Maddison this season. But the issue with even recommending him is also that his minutes are super suspect. Like Maddison was hooked at 56 minutes versus Liverpool. I could see a world where Maddison's benched, so I'm not going to recommend Maddison as a pick ever. As far as Diaz, I think he played well within the match, but then once again, there could be a reason where he's the less fit player compared to Salah. Maybe there's a good reason to actually to rotate him, for example, for a game like Leicester compared to someone like Salah, who's a little bit more of honestly, like a 1 of 1 in terms of fitness. So yeah, I think Luis Diaz is also another pick that I can't really recommend this week. But if you're super confident that Luis Diaz starts, then don't take that away from me. Maddison can definitely be benched. You just have Johnson start. I don't know how difficult that is. Any City team news yet? Not that I could see. Not that I could see. Sorry, I just got a not so nice message from a friend who's probably had some bad news with his family. So yeah, I'll try to look for leaks though. No, I don't think we have any right now, but obviously we've got an hour to go, and hopefully we have some news. Start Semenyo Cunha. I'd probably go Semenyo personally. I like to back my home games, generally speaking. And I know obviously both of them have home games, but I think Semenyo's been really productive. Bournemouth are a really good team, and I still think United in open play pretty respectable. So yeah, I'd probably go Semenyo. Hit to move one of João Pedro or Cunha or Isak. I mean, if you're probably going to move one of them, I'd say Cunha, because at the end of the day, Cunha is going to get suspended like after game week 20. If you think about it, right? Like if we look at the fixtures, like 18 Cunha plays, 19, no one's going to literally be like everyone's on holiday, right? Cunha is playing versus Wolves. Like I think that is definitely happening. But game week 20, people are back in the office around Thursday, Friday, right? Which is going to be like Jan 2, Jan 3. Sorry, am I right? Yeah. So that could be around the time where he gets his ban announced, but I wouldn't say that's even a given, but it's still likely that he's going to get banned either between here or here, right? So yeah, I think like long term, the issue is I'd say the Brighton fixtures over these two games are pretty bad. So it's like Arsenal and Aston Villa. So yeah, it's not super good, and you might get more value from Cunha over the course of it if he plays all the games, but there's still a super high likelihood that he just doesn't even play. Game week 20, which means that João Pedro is just better. So I would just, hit out a Cunha if you really want to do that. And you'll probably feel better anyways because João Pedro just has a better game. Any Man City team use not right now. Rodgers or Wood, I'd play Wood quite easily. Bench Matoma or Iwobi, I'd bench Iwobi easily. Who do I bench? Ahmad, Mbeumo, or João Pedro. I'd personally bench Ahmad. Hey Fran, bench Rodgers or Colwill. I'd probably bench Colwill actually. I think it's pretty close. You got Ahmad in your team already. Will you go Bruno or Foden as a Saka replacement? I'd probably go Foden because yeah, you kind of want to manage the rotation a little bit. Why the Odegaard transfer? I mean, why not? He should have higher goal and assist share just because you have a void in the team and he needs to fill it. And then pens and corners, which is another void that he'll fill. Who do I choose between Enzo, Ahmad, and Sar? I'd just bench Sar. I mean, I'd play Ahmad first of all, and then probably Enzo, and then Sar. I just think Sar versus Bournemouth away is a really bad game, and I'm kind of surprised that people think that Sar is a play this week, because I don't think he is. Konsa or Robinson? I mean, I'd probably play Konsa. I think Chelsea's a better offense. Start Hall or Robinson? Hall easily. Start Colwell or Rodgers? I'd say Rodgers. Are you sure it's Odegaard and Pens instead of Jesus or Havertz? I mean, Havertz didn't even take a penalty over Trossard, so I think first of all, if Odegaard wants to take a penalty, he'll take it, which he has previously. So Jesus has a pretty bad penalty record, and I think he's only been gifted a pen in the past. So there was a specific penalty that Jesus took versus Bournemouth, I think 2 years ago maybe, or 1 year ago, and Odegaard took the first penalty in that game. And then Jesus got like a pity penalty when he was coming back from injury. But I still think that Odegaard will get the first penalty if we're going to see it. Are you considering Mateta or Jackson at all in Game Week 19? I'll consider Mateta for sure. I'm not considering Jackson because I actually think he'll be benched in Game Week 19. Or there's a high chance of it, which means I'm not going to go there. And then Solanke, yeah, it's probably going to be my nailed on option. I could also roll, to be honest, right? If Cunha, I don't think is going to get banned. I mean, I could keep Cunha in my team. Nothing says that that's wrong. Rodgers or Strand Larson, I'd probably go Rodgers. Pedro Semenyo, I'd go Pedro. Verbruggen or Flecken, I'd go Verbruggen. Hey, I need to start two of Hall, Lewis, Robinson, Sar, Rodgers. Rodgers and Lewis, I would say. Why Lewis over Hall? Just better clean sheet odds. And I'm expecting that Lewis should start. And we'll see. I don't think there's any news at all in terms of Man City for now. Not that I can see, at least. Priority is to get Isak. I think it makes sense. I did see your question, Alfie. I think, yeah, you want to get Isak. Solanke's a nice pick going forwards. Jesus, I don't really mind taking a hit for now if like the alternative is Mbeumo, right? Why Odegaard over Martinelli? I just think he's going to play more minutes. I still think there's a lot of value to pen share and corner share, and that's pretty much it. PSB, hey Fran, we almost have the same team, Cole and Solanke instead of Lewis and Cunha. Yeah, I mean, Solanke's going to be better this week. Cole will probably, I don't know, slightly worse, I guess, if Lewis doesn't start, but I mean, if Lewis starts, but we'll see. I wish you good luck as well, PSB. I'll be owning like Solanke soon, right? Did you move into Isak this week? Why Lewis over Hall? Just better clean sheet odds. Play Cunha or Semenyo? I'd play Semenyo. Why Odegaard over Martinelli? I've literally just answered it like a minute ago. Start Fabianski Flecken. I'd probably go Fabianski. It's literally Southampton. Thanks for the countdown. No problem. Thoughts on Mateta instead of Cunha? I mean, not this game week, but sure, maybe from next game week going forwards. I guess Mateta is a pretty decent option. I wouldn't say he's an amazing pick though. My only concern mostly with Mateta is like the amount of minutes that he's actually playing consistently. Like, it doesn't seem like it's actually good enough, you know, for what I really want. And so if I can just go for Solanke, who plays better minutes but has one like really bad fixture like that Arsenal game in Game 21, which I can probably rotate around a little bit better, then ultimately I think Solanke is just going to be a better pick than Mateta over this run. Yeah, I think that's the issue. I think Solanke is still better. Start Hall or Aina? I'd start Hall. Dunk to Trent. Yeah, I think Dunk to Trent's a great move. Bruno and Odegaard for -4. Is who's going out of your team though? Start Doku or Larson? I'm trying to think about a Man City lineup. I mean, like in theory, Doku should be starting, but is it worth the risk compared to, let's say, Strand Larson, who's nailed? I think it comes down to risk preference. I would start Doku if you're as confident as me in Doku starting, but I can understand just going for Strand Larson, I guess. For like a bit of a safety net, if that makes sense. What do you think about doubling Ahmad and Bruno against Wolves? I don't think there's anything wrong with going Bruno now. I think what's not so nice about an Ahmad Bruno team is, I guess, the combination of Ahmad, JP, and Bruno in Game 20. But as far as benching Ahmad and Pedro this week, I think I'd bench Ahmad easily. Thoughts on Foden? I think he's pretty decent, but I'm sure his minutes aren't as good as they look right now, because when the fixtures are a bit tougher, I'm sure Foden could lose a bit more minutes than what we've seen recently. Roger, Sara, Semenyo, bench 1. Also Cunha to Isak for -4. I think if you're eventually going to get priced out of Isak, I can understand the value of the -4. So, you know, that has to come down to your own decision making. But as far as Roger, Sar, Semenyo, I'd bench Sar easily. Bench 1 and Mbeumo, Pedro, Semenyo, Ahmad. I'd probably bench Ahmad in that team. Everyone else says, is Madueke worth having in your team? Probably, yeah. Probably not, to be honest. You're just not going to get his minutes right, I think, with Madueke. Yes, of course, it's nice that he actually is pretty explosive as a player, has had a pretty great tally so far, but I just think that you're better off at that sort of price point going players who have more consistent minutes. Like, even if I look across to Arsenal and look at Martinelli, you've just got more consistent minutes anyways, and you can back that. Zala, thank you so much for the super chat. Once again, is it worth doing Gordon to Sar, as then I can do Evan Nilsson to Isak? Also, who would you start out of Verbruggen, Sells, and 2 of Hall /Ina /Colwell? I mean, if it's for hits, like, no, I wouldn't do it. But if it's for free transfers, then I don't mind it so much. As far as Verbruggen versus Sells, I think I'd go Verbruggen, just because, honestly, Sells is, like, if I can give credit to Tottenham, they're a very good offense, right? Simply put. And 2 of Hall /Ina /Colwell. I think I'd play Hall and Colwell. Yeah, I think I would just give credit to the Spurs offense there. But yeah, I wouldn't do the hokey cokey with Gordon and Isak necessarily now. if it's for hits, but if it's for free transfers, I don't really mind that. Sebastian says -4 to hit to sell Smith Rowe to Martinelli / Odegaard and bench Ahmad. Yeah, I think that's fine. Benching Ahmad though from -4. Yeah, I actually don't think it's worth the hit. I think I'll just play Ahmad in that case. I don't think it's too bad to play Ahmad at all. Who thinks Tielemans takes penalties when Watkins is not playing? I mean, it's possible, right? Because Tielemans actually was supposed to be the penalty taker, then he missed penalties, then Watkins actually took the next penalty. But I guess the question is, does him missing that penalty suddenly make that someone else is even the deputy penalty taker? Which I think that point is still disputable and it's not clear. So my concern with that point is, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Duran, for example, takes penalties, and just because of the, like, if we've seen Watkins can get penalties with his ridiculous penalties record, I guess simply by being the striker of the team, then who's to say that Duran can't? And I don't know who's to say that Rodgers can't, because Rodgers has taken penalties as well recently within his sort of U21 games. Would you start Holwell or Cole? I think, Hall or Colwell. I think it's super close. I'd go Colwell personally, just to sort of back against that Fulham team, which is a slightly worse offense anyways. Maybe even Rodgers takes penalties. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that. But we're not going to know. And I think the presumption is probably that, yeah, it's probably Tielemans' deputy. What do you think Diogo Jota is a differential? I just can't guarantee his minutes. And yeah, I'm not really sure about it. I just wouldn't... I honestly cannot. I'm not confident enough to say that Jota starts. I think one thing that could be very helpful is actually if we look at Jump the Wave. So that would be Jump the Wave on Twitter and the sort of top Liverpool predictions for this game week, and kind of see what they say. Like I'll just quickly run you through some of the numbers. So around 50% of the top Liverpool predictors think that Robertson's benched, and most of the sort of high skilled Liverpool predictors think that Robertson's going to be benched anyways. So that means, you know, more so Tsimikas starting. Most people do think Jota starts. So if you care, like around 78% of the predictors think that Jota starts. So if that's something that you care about and you're thinking about the front two, the suggestion and implication here is that Jota and Diaz starts. But there's, you know, a bit of a mix in terms of how much Gakpo is within the team, and a few people think that there could be a Darwin start, but not so many. So, but the issue is, as always, is you can't guarantee that, right? And some of the best, like the best predictor, for example, for Liverpool actually says that Diaz is benched. So yeah, you're not going to get that guarantee. And once you sort of splice in that guarantee, plus the fact that Jota is someone who's pretty unfit right now, him suddenly playing more than 65 minutes isn't actually as good as it is. So yeah. Nick, thank you so much for the super chat. You meant to write here, worth it to go -4 for Timber to Trent, or just do it. I would do it next game week personally. I would just do it next game week. Like, Arsenal have such a good fixture, slightly better clean sheet odds anyways. I'd probably take my chances with Timber and hope for the best. So yeah, whilst I think Jota starts, I just don't think he's really worth a hit. Any City leaks? No, I'm still waiting out for Tony, I guess, the big boss. Why am I not keen on Ahmad? What do you mean by why am I not keen on him? I just have no interest in another budget player within my team when I don't need one, right? Are you basically saying that Ahmad is someone that I should be replacing Rodgers with, or what's the point here? How do you feel about Martinelli or Gordon? I like Martinelli a lot personally. I think I'd on board Martinelli this week for sure if I had another free transfer. Like, I would probably replace Mbeumo with Martinelli within my own team. But as far as, you know, other sort of points, like let's say Gordon. I'm not sure if I'd love Gordon this week. I'd probably go for Gordon on 21 instead. Although I can see the appeal of, let's say, going out of Mbeumo for Gordon if you really want to. Like, Gordon has really good production this season. The issue with Gordon, I think, is always the element of you're using free transfers to go into Gordon. So I'd probably go for Gordon 21 plus. Like, I think that's just a better set of fixtures. Yeah, Gordon's numbers are good, but I wouldn't say he's like one of the best picks in the game by far. I think he competes pretty well alongside, let's say, like Bowen, and a lot of people around that price point ultimately. Because you're still gonna have a somewhat poor game week 19 fixture too. So I kind of think buying on 2021 makes sense, especially like if I was to compare to Mbeumo, like I can kind of get the idea of or go on board with just going for Gordon over Mbeumo for now. I think that's fine, but I'd probably actually like Martinelli more if you were a bit higher on his minutes than Gordon. Yeah, I think if I was to think about it like that, I'd probably say that. Dan says Jota or Diaz on free hit. I'd probably go for Jota on the free hit, but I'm not sure if I yeah, if you're on a free hit, I get you want to just go for a Liverpool third attacker because you're going to go Salah and Trent. So yeah, I'd probably just go Jota. And a lot of people are predicting that he starts, so why not? Yeah, but the thing is, like, on the transition threat piece, right? Like, I mean, you can't win in every circumstance, right? Like, if he's got good games, he's got good games, and if he's got bad games, he's got transition threat. Like, so what? He's just an amazing pick outright. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, I guess I could still even hold the argument that Mbeumo takes penalties, but yeah, I think generally speaking, if I was to say, if we look at Gordon now, I think he's probably actually on par with someone like, let's say, I think he's probably got the best set of fixtures for the next 8 game weeks versus an Mbeumo versus a Bowen. But I don't think he's that much better than them to warrant a transfer is all I'm trying to say. So I think, like, if you were to look at points expectations probably for the next, like, I don't know, 8 game weeks, it might be clear that Bowen's the best pick, but then also using a free transfer that direction is quite costly in FPL. Whereas I think Martinelli still nets you like a little bit of cash, right? Because I'm thinking most people are coming from a position where they own it Mbeumo. If you're suddenly moving off of Mbeumo and you own, let's say, Martinelli, and you're expecting Martinelli to play like 75, 78 minutes a game, then you're probably going to get more value from Martinelli anyways, and also use cash in the bank. Whereas with Gordon, you're probably, saving like 0.1 at best, and also using a free transfer that direction. Yeah, he's a good pick. From Bowen, I mean, I wouldn't even transfer Bowen this week, right? Because he's got Southampton away and he's on penalties. So yeah, like I would consider selling Bowen to Gordon next week, but it's also I just use Bowen as like a representative pick, I suppose, of someone who has good fixtures over this run. Because yeah, like Bowen will have Liverpool and City, and everyone will be minded to sell, but he still has some good games in the distance, so. Bowen for sure, I can get the appeal to selling, but I'm still thinking and answering the question from like an Mbeumo, I guess, context. And what's nice about Mbeumo is I think if you sell someone out of Mbeumo, you're losing the money in the bank, which has some sort of inherent value in FPL. And then the issue with, let's say, Gordon potentially is game week 29 blank. So moving or using free transfers for someone who is likely going to have a blank in game week 29 is quite significant. Like, I've gone into Odegaard, and probably I'm guilty of this, but I think I'm always going to say that the Odegaard move would have made sense in a no Saka landscape, given that I'm probably always going to go into Bruno anyways, somewhere down my horizon, like probably around, I don't know, let's say game week 27, or if not 20, like, is it 4? I think there's another good sort of United fixture, or like 21, for example, but Odegaard has Tottenham at home in 21. So there's like a couple jump pads. Fran at the back post. Is this a good transfer out? Saka, Mikolenko, Raul in Trent, Rogers, Jesus. Oh, you're selling Raul as well, right? Trent, Rogers, Jesus, I think is nice. I quite like that. ADS, thank you so much for the super chat. And sorry, Vic had a super chat. First of all, Fran, my guy, Amano Semenyo. I think it's a close call. I personally like to back home game players. I don't think there's much in it. I think that's a true 50-50, but I would go Semenyo personally. Vic, so thank you for your super chat. But ADS for your super chat. Bench one, Evan Nilsson, João Pedro, Enzo, Rogers. I'd probably bench Enzo if I'm honest. I just think that Enzo is playing a little bit deeper because of the labia injury, and that has a negative impact on him and sort of his general, average position, all that kind of stuff, and what that means for positional share and XG and all that kind of stuff. Isak in for Cunha. EY, this is the question. Isak in for Cunha, Sar/Ahmad/Enzo for Mbeumo, or keep it steady. I don't really mind going Isak and Ahmad this week if you want to do that. Bringing in Enzo unlocks a double upgrade, Cunha to Isak and Solanke to Jackson. I don't think Solanke to Jackson is an upgrade. Thoughts on Foden, please? I think it's a pretty good pick. The position that I see Foden as is, if you have the luxury to go to Foden and it's not really costing you additional money. So for example, for me, the reason why I want to go for Odegaard/Bruno within my team is that money will still get me Cunha to Solanke next game week, right? Which I quite like. Whereas if you didn't need to make a move like that and you're just looking for someone who's going to cover the gaps, I guess, for the next game weeks, then Foden's fine. But I'd still say that Foden probably has worse minutes compared to Odegaard and Bruno, and he doesn't have too much, I guess, external value. Like, for example, if KDB's on the field, that's taking away penalties, or that's taking away corners from Foden. If KDB is on the field and fit as well, that could potentially also have knock-on impacts on Foden's minutes anyways, because Bernardo can go inside if Savio can play. So I think Foden's minutes are probably a little bit overstated, but he's not a bad pick. Those are my thoughts. Would you start Mitoma? Rogers? I'd start Mitoma easily. Pedro, Rogers? I'd go Pedro easily. Philip, thank you so much for the super chat. Would you go for Bruno Martinelli instead of Saka? I personally would probably go for Martinelli and try and gamble a bit, but that's only if that money in the bank can get you a move. Like, for example, if you're out on Trent, if you're out on Isak and Martinelli gets you that, then I would go for it. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, Bruno, I think it's just a super safe standard hold. If you don't have any luxury transfers to make, then maybe actually Bruno is just the safer pick. Irfan, thank you so much for your super chat, your third one as well. Really appreciate that. Three transfers. You've got Flecken, Gabriel, Timber, Consta, Robinson, Lewis, Semedo, Mbeumo, Mitoma, Palmer, Salah, Jackson, Isak, Cunha. I mean, your team actually looks really good this week. The only thing I'd say is okay, I probably want to have Trent this week, and your third defender is pretty weak. I guess you'd probably want to sell Semenyo, but Semedo, but you actually could play Lewis this week as well. And Mitoma actually has a good game. I would actually consider Mbeumo. I mean, how much money in the bank do you have? Because you've got Palmer, Salah, Jackson, Isak, Cunha. I'm not even sure. I'm sure you have money in the bank, right? I mean, the transfers that I would be interested in would be Mbeumo to Martinelli. I think could be quite interesting. The only issue is that you'd keep Mitoma in your team, and he's kind of got bad games after this one. So this is I wouldn't recommend selling Mitoma now, but maybe the idea is actually Mitoma goes down to another budget position later down the line, and you can make an upgrade. But if you need to kind of make some moves, I would say maybe you could try sell Mbeumo, and then we actually still need to save free transfers for Cunha. So there's a couple things in play. I think Mbeumo to Mart or Mitoma to Mart is fine, like Martinelli, that is. I think playing Lewis is fine. An upgrade, I personally think if you could go Allison, that would be nice. And I'm assuming that you can because you've got money in the bank. Cunha, I think, needs to be downgraded or upgraded, but you already have Jackson and Isak, and I wouldn't really recommend someone to go Jackson, Isak, and Solanke, because it actually kind of forces you into a position where, let's say, if Jackson is a little bit sus, or Solanke is a little bit sus, it's hard to kind of re-explore options to sort of use the cash. So I'd probably try to save one free transfer. I'd probably go for Martinelli. I'd probably skip on Trent for this game week. You already have Isak. I'd play Lewis as your third defender. I'd consider a keeper move. I'd consider a Martinelli move, either for Mbeumo or Mitoma, and I'd save free transfer so you can address Cunha in the future, right? And that's probably how I would play it. And with Jackson, I think you need to consider, first of all, that he could be benched over this run, which is important. But other than that, I would say with Jackson, the other point to make is he can always be a bit of a cash cow for you. So I'd hold on to at least one free transfer so that you can have two coming out of this week. And that's pretty much how I would answer that question. But yeah, Gabriel, Timber, Lewis. You play your 3-4-3. You probably go Martinelli and go for it from that point of view. It could even be Matoma to Martinelli, to be honest, if you can afford it. Just because Mbeumo is probably a better long-term hold than Matoma. As far as Notorious Resol's question. Hi, Fran. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing good too. Congrats on your new rank. Thank you so much. Would you take a -4 to get Odegaard for Saka or just play Enzo? I would actually take the -4. I don't think you're going to recuperate the value immediately this game week, but I still think Odegaard is a really good pick over the sort of run where you want to try at least get into the Ipswich at home, get some value from there, and then move on. Is probably how I would see it. Start Rogers or Rico Lewis, RLHPYRT. Yeah, I mean, I would personally play Lewis unless you're 100% certain that Lewis is benched, right? I haven't seen any City leaks or news about City leaks. So I would have to imagine that still my expectation is Lewis starts. What do you think about Timber? I think Timber is still a solid pick, but he's probably due a rest eventually. And one of the things with Arsenal defense, I would say is, if I was to pick one Arsenal defender, I would always go Gabriel. And if I wanted to go double Arsenal defense, I probably think that this isn't the time to do it, because even though it's nice on paper to get Ipswich at home, I would say generally you've got players like Munoz coming up who are really good. Hall is really good. There's probably enough good defenders in the game that you can rotate between. Castagna, for example, as well. Robinson, these types of players. Like rotating Hall, Munoz, and Castagna is good enough, I think, to actually say you don't really need more defenders, especially if you own Gabriel and Trent. So Timber only really applies to people who don't have Trent, as someone that I would say is quite a good own going forwards. Trossard or Martinelli, I'd go Martinelli personally. I think his minutes and his form might be a little bit better right now anyways. Salah, your team is Verbruggen, Hull, Colwell, Gabriel, Odegaard, Salah, Sarr, Palmer, Isak, Cunha, Jackson, subs, sells. I would play Ahmad over Sarr personally. I would play Ahmad over Sarr easily, Salah. I think that's what I would do. Nasser, thank you so much for your super chats. Saka and Cunha to Diaz and Jesus for free. I don't really like the Diaz move, if I'm honest. I just don't think his minutes are super guaranteed, and I still think I prefer Odegaard and Bruno. But if you want to go Diaz, fine. I do like Jesus as a move though. There is a 4 yellow card suspension risk with Jesus, but I can back the minutes of Jesus a lot better over this horizon. Those twins says pick 2 Cunha, JP, and Sarr. Should I Jesus -8? I don't think the Jesus -8 is really worth it, but I'd play Cunha and JP. Happy Christmas to you as well, Adam. Hope you're doing well. Nice to see you around on one of the live streams. Triple Captain Salah. I probably would just wait for the double game week, guys. Best 6 million or lower midfielder for the upcoming game weeks. I'd still probably say it's probably Semenyo. Like, if I had the choice right now to choose between Rogers, Enzo, not even, yeah, fine. Let's include Enzo. Rogers, Enzo, Ahmad, Semenyo, Kluivert, Sarr, for example. Maybe Sarr actually has the best run of games, like, for the next few weeks, but you also don't really want to be spending free transfers on that position, right? So I think ultimately I probably actually would back Semenyo long term, and then Semenyo if you really just were looking at, and if you're just focused on, like, I don't know, the next 5 weeks, and that's all you care about, then fine, maybe Sarr is better than like, let's say, Ahmad and Semenyo. But I personally would just say that Semenyo is the best long term pick, because also the value of Semenyo is that he will not blank on Gaming 29. Happy Christmas to you as well, Adam. Your opinion about Foden fixtures? I mean, they're great, but I still think Foden, like, he could still get rested throughout some of these games, which is not ideal. Start Rogers or Wood? I just play Wood. I mean, Tottenham at home is lovely. Thoughts on Kulusevski as a differential? Yeah, he's been playing really well. The numbers have been ticking up in terms of, like, XG and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's very, very important for sort of looking at Kulusevski and considering, you know, what do we think about him? But I would only consider him from next week onwards, right? Not this week onwards. Would you start Aina Robinson? I'd start Aina for sure, just because home game. Why Pedro or Cunha over Hall? I mean, great home games, basically. And attackers are usually better than the defenders. A-Trax, thank you so much for the super chat. From Hong Kong as well. So nice to see you. Bench 2, Semenyo, Sar, Rogers, Kirkus, or Hall. I'd probably bench Kirkus, if I'm honest. As far as Semenyo, Sar, Rogers, I'd bench Sar easily. Like I do just flat out think that this is a bad game for Sar. I think every other game after this for Sar is really good. But Bournemouth away is an extremely bad match. So yeah, I would bench Sar. If you really want to, you could bench Rogers as well, but I think I'd probably play Rogers over Sar this week. No Alice in this game week? No, I'm trying to save up some money for Solanke personally. Start Ahmad or Cunha? I'd probably just start Ahmad actually. Would you start Robinson or Konsa? I'd probably still go Konsa. Just sort of thinking that Chelsea's a better offense anyways. Why not Mateta instead of Solanke? Personally, I think Solanke just has better minutes than Mateta. And that's kind of my concern with Mateta mostly. And his expected goal sort of involvement is pretty poor. Even though I think Mateta, yeah, it has the advantage of being a penalty taker. So yeah, generally the way I see it is if I looked at the next like few games for Solanke, I don't think there's like a Richarlison threat, honestly, over January at all. So it's like even over the next 8 game weeks, I think Solanke is just better. Like I'd much prefer the Crystal Palace midfielders, like compared to, I guess, the difference between Solanke and Mateta. Any leaks yet? Doesn't seem like we've gotten any leaks so far. But I can try continue to see. I don't think we've gotten any leaks. Merry Christmas, my goat. Would you start Matoma or JP? I'd start JP. Just because of penalties and stuff like that. Would you play Cunha or Rogers? I'd play Cunha. Kulu in for Saka. I don't love Kulu this week. I mean, it's Nottingham Forest away, right? It's not really a good game. So, I mean, if you're going to bring in someone for Saka this week, unless it's enabling another free transfer that's really nice, I'd probably just go for someone who actually has a good game himself. Is it crazy to start Rogers over Mbeumo? I don't think it's crazy, but I personally wouldn't do it. Do you think it's worth going on -4 for Fleck and Raya? I don't love the -4, but I don't mind it either. If you really want to spend money on Raya or Allison, I think that's fine. But I just wouldn't do it for -4. I can see the appeal to it though. I just think that if I go Allison now, I'm kind of locking myself in, spending too much money within the goalkeeping position. I don't have that Cunha to Solanke line open, so not something I love. I tend to generally like having as little money as possible within my sort of goalkeeping positions, and then if I need to, let's say, go for a goalkeeper for the double, like Pickford or Allison, for example, I'll do that later down the line. Evan Nelson to Jesus, I think that's fine. I think that's a good move. Start Rogers or Colwill. I'd probably go Rogers. Wisa to Jesus for a hit. Yeah, I think that's fine. Because honestly, the next 2 Mbeumo games are just bad, right? And Jesus honestly has, excuse me, sorry, a really good run of games. Would you start Cunha or Pedro? I'd probably start Pedro easily. You transfer out Mbeumo next game week? Not really. Even though I think Sara is really good and, you know, all that. My concern really is you're looking at whether I need to sort of have additional money in the bank, I guess. And so, yeah, maybe SAR helps to enable to get me to, let's say, I don't know, an Allison, like as soon as possible. The idea is also I probably would take Mbeumo over the next 3 game weeks, including this one compared to SAR. And I probably won't get to Allison soon enough for it to really matter. Plus, I kind of like the optionality of Pickford right now. And I need to make that Solanke move. So because of that, I'm not sure if I'm just going to force a move on Sar like next week. I think if I go to Sar, it might be 21 instead. But on 21, the thing that's quite critical is that actually that's a really good game week to bring in Bruno. So I'll need to continue like assessing, for example, like how I feel about Odegaard, how I feel about Sar, how I feel about Mbeumo as well. So all those 4 players I think are within the same conundrum. Hey bro, bench Colwell or Hull? I think I'd bench Hull. Start Lewis or Colwell? I'd start Lewis personally. But once again, it depends on your confidence on whether Lewis starts or not. Fran, you're on a wild card. Enzo / Munoz or Semenyo / Milenkovic. I would just go. I mean, I'd go Enzo Munoz. I don't love Enzo if I'm honest, but I also don't like I don't love Milenkovic that much. I'd probably just go Enzo Munoz. Actually, how much is Milenkovic? Is he 4.4? I mean, 4.6. How much is Lewis Hall? Oh, it's 4.7. Is that the issue? Like 0.1? It's kind of rough. Oh, God. I just think Enzo is actually a pretty big downgrade to Semenyo. I'd probably actually go Semenyo plus another defender. Flecken or Fabianski? I'd just go Fabianski. I mean, Southampton are just a much worse offense than Brighton anyways. Like, collectively, if you look at the season, long numbers, I think I'd probably just back. I mean, Southampton just failed to score versus Fulham as well. So, I mean, like, Southampton been a pretty toothless team. I know Juric just come in and they actually looked immediately better, but yeah. Start Rodgers or Iwobi? I'd probably go Rodgers. Why Odegaard? Why not? Start Hall or Robinson. I'd start Hall easily. I mean, Robinson just has a tough away game. Who would you bench out of Bowen, Semenyo, Cunha? I'd bench Cunha. I mean, Bowen's on penalties for Southampton. Semenyo has a good home game. So does Cunha, but, you know, I'd probably back Bournemouth, honestly, overall as a team a little bit more. And, yeah. Why Odegaard over Martinelli? If I go Martinelli, I think I still think he's worse of a pick than Odegaard. I guess I could have gone Odegaard and Martinelli over Mbeumo and like my Guardiola move, but I really liked Trent. So if I was ever going to go Martinelli in the order of, like, let's say picking between him and Odegaard, I would always go Odegaard first because I still think he's a better pick overall in terms of expected points than Martinelli. And then if I really want to go Martinelli next week, I'll go Martinelli next week. Any leaks? Not that I could see, unfortunately. Rodgers or Enzo? I'd probably go Rodgers. Try not to spam in chat. Bogey says, who would you consider Robertson in bench Milenkovic? I just don't think Robertson's worth it. I don't think Robertson is even guaranteed to start, by the way. Guardiola to Saliba, I think, makes no sense. I think I'd just go Guardiola over the next 3 weeks. I think the only player who's actually better than Guardiola the next 3 weeks is actually Trent. And the only reason why I sent Guardiola or sold Guardiola is because of Trent. Who would you start? Wood or Rodgers? Wood for sure. Home game and Spurs. Really good targeting. But let me just quickly check if there's going to be leaks or anything like that. I haven't seen anything online, though. Gotta say. I don't really see anything when it comes to leaks today. But I mean, I could be wrong on that. Yeah, not that I could really see. I don't think there's any sort of leaks in and around. Nope. Still don't see anything. I mean, 15 minutes left and we don't have leaks is kind of depressing, to be honest. Considering this is Man City we're talking about. And we used to have it so good. But, I mean, what can you do? Maybe we'll still get something. Because I know Tony did mention that he's got something for his Patreon, which I'm a part of, but we'll see. Lewis starting. My assumption is Lewis starts. Rodgers or Raul. I'd probably just play... I mean, I'd play Rodgers, but if you really want to go Raul for risk, I would go for it. Would you consider Guardiola? I think Guardiola is actually pretty good, to be honest, as a -4. I think that's fine. It depends, obviously, on how bad your third defender is. Hi, Fran. I'm starting Isak. Would you bench Pedro, Solanke? I'd bench Solanke. Jackson for Isak for a -4. I think it's probably worth it, yeah. Only because I think Jackson could be benched over this run. Hull versus Munoz on a wild card. I'd probably go Munoz, to be honest, on a wild card. Rodgers or Dunk, I'd probably play Rodgers. Play Matoma, Rodgers or Hull, I'd play Matoma. What are the chances KDB starts? I think it's really high, actually. Start 1, Dean, Hull, or Van Heck, just because he played 0 minutes last match. Dean, Hull, Van Heck, I'd probably play Hull. Quick summary of why I chose Odegaard over Bruno. I think short term, 3 to 4 games, like better fixtures overall compared to Bruno. I think that Odegaard in a Saka-less world is someone who competes close to Bruno. But Arsenal just generally have better fixtures. So the way I see it is, I think I sort of looked at the value of Odegaard from an expected points point of view over Bruno over the next few weeks and sort of concluded that I'd be happy owning Odegaard over Bruno, even if I had to spend a free transfer to go from Odegaard to Bruno. So there. And I think, yeah, ultimately, probably he's got the least amount of ownership within the game, like for a pretty expensive pick. That it has good value anyways, and yeah, that's ultimately why I went there. Dill, thank you so much for the super chat. Start Ahmad over Colwell, Lewis, Kirkes, or Wisa. I'd start Ahmad over all of them, yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't play Wisa at all. I think the bench order that I would do, or like the order that I would play it here is I would go Ahmad, then Lewis, then Colwell, then Kirkes, then Wisa probably. Or maybe actually I'd play Wisa... I'd probably play Wisa actually over all the defenders. Yeah, I'd probably play Wisa over all the defenders except for Lewis. So I'd go Ahmad, Lewis, Wisa, then Colwell, then Kirkes in that order. I hope that helps. Ben Jardine, thank you so much for the super chat. I actually missed that one, but bench Raul or Robinson? I'd bench Robinson for sure. I think like if you think about that Chelsea game, Chelsea have been pretty okay on defense, I guess. But more specifically, Chelsea have always been much better on offense this season. So anytime you look at most games, I'd say I'd expect Chelsea to score. So on that basis, I'd just bench Robinson and hope for the best with Raul in that case. Because if there's any way that I'd target Chelsea, it's pretty much on their defensive point of view. Bench 1, Wisa, Enzo, Rodgers. I'd probably bench Wisa or Enzo. I wouldn't bench Rodgers, I'd say. It's a close call, though, on those ones. I'd probably bench Enzo, just because of the Lavia aspect. Do I start Matoma or Wood? I'd probably start Wood. Fran, top 5 goalkeepers on Game Week 18. You mean like just from a wildcard point of view? I mean, I'd probably say Alisson and Raya, first of all, and Henderson. I quite like. So I'd probably say those 3 are my top keepers. Start Hall, Aina, Robinson. Please help. I'd start Hall. Rodgers or Enzo, I'd probably play Rodgers. Start Hall or Colwell. I'd play Colwell. Tottenham punts. What you mean punts? I mean there's always Son. I don't really like Madison's minutes. I don't like Johnson's minutes. So I think yeah, it's Kulusevski. It's probably Son. It's also you can't even go a defender right now. So yeah, I think those 2. Happy holidays as well to Andre. How long is Lavia out for? I'm not sure, to be honest. The timeline wasn't really clear. Start JP or Evan Nilsson? I'd start JP. Is Joe Gomez still valid? Not really, because you probably need to transfer him out when Konate is back. But if you think Konate is still out for a while, which I don't have the timeline on Konate, but Joe Gomez could still be relevant. Gambling for Foden is totally fine. No issues with Foden. No issues with Son either. But ultimately, I just thought Bruno Odegaard at that sort of price point preferred it, considering the minutes as well, guaranteed. Start Matoma or Sar? I start Matoma. Start Enzo or João Pedro. João Pedro. I'm also going to put you in timeout just because you're spamming. Start Semenyo or Enzo. I'd start Semenyo easily. Is Joe Gomez still valid? Not that much. I've answered the question as well. Start Rogers or João Pedro. João Pedro. Allison for Flecken or Cunha to Isak. I'd go Cunha to Isak, right? Because it's the most priority move right now, and it still gives you an upgrade on player. For sure. Like, I'd go Cunha to Isak easily. Good evening from HK Fran. Start Watkins, Semenyo, Enzo. I'd probably start Semenyo. How about Jackson to Jesus for -4? I don't think it's worth a -4. But if you want to do it and you're really worried about that Jackson bench, then I guess just about it could be worth it. But you have to be as confident as me on the benching. So, yeah, it depends on what you think about the benching for sure. Andre, thank you so much for the super chat. Gordon / Mbeumo / Bowen. I'd go Gordon on the wild card. Sar I think is lovely. But are you saying Gordon now and then go Sar immediately, or is your point that you're going Sar on top of these players? Because if I wouldn't go for anyone, like I wouldn't go for any of these players and then suddenly move into Sar. Or is your point like you go for a 1 week punt for this week and you're asking for the 1 week punt? If it's a 1 week punt, I'd say Bowen, given that he's going to be on penalties, right? But if you're going on the wild card, I'd say Gordon. And Sar I think is lovely on the wild card too. Sebastian, yeah, I mean you've got the same question, right? Sell Jackson to Jesus for -4. As I said, it comes down to, I think you need to sort of make up your mind on whether you think that Jackson's going to be benched over the next 2 games. And if that counts, and if you don't really mind about the yellow card suspension aspect of Jesus, then you can probably make the -4. But I think it's a tough decision. It kind of depends on your risk preference. As far as the other question in chat, which was... Last minute league check? Yeah, absolutely. We can have a look for it. I think there's city leaks. But it's not. I think everyone that we want to start starts. I think, yeah. Seems like it. Sam FPL says Foden is present with his squad, but no confirmation on his start. Yeah, SNK, I think that's correct. Fran, do I sell Son for Bruno or someone else for this week for -4 and then bring Son back next week? I don't think selling Son for Bruno makes any sense. No, I think that makes no sense. Foden starts. I would think so, yeah. Start Enzo or Semenyo, I'd go Semenyo. Start Evanilson or Ahmad, I'd go Ahmad. Hall or Mazraoui, I'd go Mazraoui. Fran, bro. Mbeumo or Odegaard, I'd go Odegaard personally. Start Rogers or João Pedro, I'd go João Pedro. Good luck to Martin plus Fran this week. Thank you, Caesar. Or Cesar. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what I'm going to do about my striker position. I think I'm just going to go Solanke personally. I just don't see any other way around it. It's probably going to be Solanke next week, and then I make moves around it. Like, I just think at the end of the day, Solanke is such a good pick. What's the plans for my forward line? Yeah, Solanke, João Pedro, Isak is going to be my front line. Bench Sar, JP. I'd bench Sar easily. Sanchez or Fabianski. I'd probably play Sanchez because he's at home. I think Foden does start. Yeah, that's correct. I think Rigo Lewis starts. Yeah, I think that was even in like predicted lineup. So I think Lewis is starting. I'm really sorry that I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this name correctly, but Abhijit, or I really apologize. Do let me know how to sort of enunciate that. Sanchez, Van Dijk, Saliba, Housen, Palmer, blah blah blah. Let's see. So Salah, Rogers, Ahmad, Jesus, Pedro, Isak, Sar, Milenkovic, Castagna, Fabianski on bench. I think Sanchez is fine. I think that's the correct call. Castagna on bench, correct call. Milenkovic, correct call. Sar, correct call. Okay. I think Ahmad definitely plays. I think it's probably, if you really wanted to make a decision, I think it's between Rogers and Sar. I would play Rogers personally because I'm super into that like Aston Villa team. Like I think they looked so good last week. And this is a bit of a tactical thing sort of bleeding into my sort of understanding of you know, baselines and stuff like that. But yeah, I would say 100% I would play that team. Sar is a really good first bench at the end of the day, you know, for what it is. Any city leaks? Yeah, guys, I think there are city leaks, but they're on Tony's Patreon, right? I will just say that I think everyone that we want to start from City starts, except for, yeah. Yeah, I don't really know how to. I will need to think about this sort of leak situation, because if Tony shares stuff on Patreon, I'm not going to say what I've read on the Patreon. I will need to think about this, but I think that everyone who is a serious Man City pick right now starts. You know, there is not a single Man City player on my cheat sheet, for example, who doesn't start. Let's put it like that. So if you cared enough. So Menu or JP, I'd play JP. Why Lewis over Hull? Because I think Lewis has just got a much better fixture. That's it. Start Colwell or Burn. I'd start Colwell. Same with Colwell over Hull. I'd start Colwell too. Start Flecken or Fabianski. I'd start Fabianski. Yeah, sorry. Definitely a much better game. Is Guardiola starting? I would say so. Cunha or Enzo to start. I'd say Cunha. Tony said, all right, well, hey Jahid, hope you're well. Dibbling or Rogers? I'd play Rogers. Start Rogers or Dibbling. I think I would just play Rogers because that Dibbling 45-minute substitution last match was really weird. I'm not sure if Dibbling is even going to start, you know, technically. Thanks again, Fran. The best FPL content. Thank you, guys. Guys, not much time left. I think everyone who you want in Man City to start starts. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I think time's up in 45 seconds. I would start Ahmad. I would start Semenyo for sure. Like these are the players that I would love to start this week. For me, Rogers, etc. are benchable. Like Sar benchable. Holland. Guys, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. You know, even if you don't celebrate. And that's it. Hope you guys have a wonderful time. The leaks are on Tony's Patreon, right? So I need to think about how I'm going to manage this going forwards. You know, so unfortunately that's what I need to do. You always tell people between you and FPL Harry, you've got the season sorted. I appreciate that. That's really, really kind. Harry's a great manager. Evan Nilsson. Okay. You guys are shouting names out. Isak, João Pedro, Cunha. Those are my strikers. Good luck this game, you guys. Honestly, have a wonderful week. Enjoy the football. I am Meme's father. That's true. And yeah. Take care, guys. Jesus, I think, is a good pick, yeah. But only if you're really buying this week, I would say. All right. And that's it. Thank you guys once again. Really, really appreciate it. I will see you soon. Take care. And enjoy Boxing Day football. Because I will.